Welcome to the Boardroom Zen. I am your host, Megha Joshi. In this show, we hear the untold stories and best practices from world-class business executives on how they deal with pressure and setbacks in the boardroom and beyond. Yes, these business leaders are no superhumans, but they have found their unique formula to stay grounded and bring their A-game to the table amidst the chaos. So let's begin. In today's episode, I bring to you a special guest that I greatly admire. This leader is both fierce and compassionate and started her career in corporate finance. Thereafter, she deepened her understanding of learning solutions, strategically and operationally. And after 2 decades of working for cable entrepreneur Glenn Jones, most recently for his company NCTI, an enterprise learning solutions provider, she went on to acquire the company in 2015. She has been operating as the CEO of NCTI for the past 9 years and has led the company to new heights of success. Please join me in welcoming none other than Stacey Slaughter. Stacey, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Megha. It's great to be here. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. So, Stacey, why don't we start with a little bit about your early years, and did you really envision, this particular journey for yourself?
Yeah, it's such a great question, and I love getting that question because the answer is usually a laugh and a no. Never in a million years. And I work with college students a little bit, and I'll hear that they've got all these, well, I'm going to do this by the time I'm 26, and by the time I'm 31, I need to be here. And I just think, okay, that's great. It's wonderful to have a plan, and also make sure you pay attention to all those open doors and windows along the way, because you don't want to be so focused on the plan that you miss incredible opportunities. I have not 1, but 2 degrees in accounting, and I thought for sure I would just stay in the accounting and finance realm my whole entire career. Maybe move into an operational finance type of a role eventually, but to really have been presented with opportunities about 10 years ago to become a more operational executive, and then to be mentored by one of the leaders in our industry, and then eventually to be into this role. Never thought I would own a company ever. In fact, even once the opportunity presented itself, it took me some time to really become comfortable with, like, okay, I could do this. I could really do this, and to take that leap. And so the answer is no. I never thought I would be here, and I would not change it for the world. I love it. I love what I do. I love our students. I love our company. The team is absolutely amazing, and I wouldn't have changed any of these decisions.
I love the honesty, Stacey.
That's the truth. And my team knows that as well. They are quite aware.
And you're probably the only CEO I know personally that ended up acquiring the company they worked for. So obviously, you didn't, in the beginning, you didn't see that coming, but then you took over as the CEO. Is there anything in particular that you wish somebody told you before you became a CEO? Then you being surprised after all?
It's an interesting and good question. I wish I would have known something, but I think if somebody had told me, I wouldn't have understood. I think that's an important distinction. And I tell folks that are just getting into being a higher level executive or a CEO or starting out on their own and having their own company, that just because somebody tells you something, you don't necessarily fully understand that. And I knew, like my intellect knew that the buck stops with the CEO. That you truly, that at the end of the day, ultimately, the CEO is responsible, and it's the CEO's responsibility to have an incredibly strong leadership team, folks that they can trust to make decisions, absolutely. And yet, at the end of the day, if something goes awry, it's ultimately the CEO's responsibility. And that's something that your brain can know, but it's different when it comes to your heart, truly understanding that. And even I've had friends that have been in like CEO roles and moved on to CEO roles, and they'll come back and they'll say, Stacey, I just didn't get it until I sat in that seat. And if there's a question about making payroll, that's ultimately my responsibility. If we blow it with a customer, that's ultimately my responsibility. Are there others involved in that process? 100%. Yes. And I've got strong leaders across the board and a strong team that are doing their absolute best. And also, I know that there's no one to scapegoat beyond me. I am, at the end of the day, it's my responsibility. I think too that we talk about corporate cultures, and one person can't ultimately take day-to-day responsibility for any one particular thing, and corporate culture takes the entire team. But we talk about having that freedom to fail within corporate cultures and how important that is, and I truly believe that. It wasn't until I was in this role, it was easier to say it until I was in this role and understand that I still believe that 100%, day and night, believe that. It is much more difficult to feel comfortable with it when at the end of the day, if there is a failure, it's your fault. It's your fault too.
Yeah.
It's your responsibility as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot riding on the shoulders of the CEO, as you yourself mentioned. I remember one executive that I watched closely in my early years. She used to say that we do not learn to ride a bike by watching someone ride a bike. We have to get on the bike and we have to fall and bruise ourselves and get hurt and pick ourselves and just move on, and that's how you figure it out. And I'm sure the same is true for any role across the world, if you will.
100%. Something that I shared with my team early when I bought the company and continue to do. This is the first time I've been a small business owner. There is a lot, even now we're 7 years later, that I'm still learning. And so I'll say that to them. I'm learning as I go, just like all of you all are as well. And we're going to learn together, and I will do our absolute best. I have faith in my judgment. I have faith in their talent and skill. I have faith that they're going to be candid with me. And we've got to be able to have that level of trust and know that we're learning as we go. We absolutely are. And if we stop learning, how boring is that? I mean, come on. Let's keep growing. Let's keep learning.
Totally. And I hear the passion, kind of overflow through the voice of yours. So your team is lucky to have you. I'm just interested in also understanding from you, how do you make sure that you bring your authentic self, the human, to work? Because your team in others you work with can get intimidated by titles. So how do you make sure you cut across all of that?
Oh, that's a good question. And I think being a small team helps. I will say that there's a little bit of cheating in there because we are small. When we get on, we have weekly weekly Zoom calls now. Used to be we all stand up in the middle of the office together, but now it's Zoom calls. And all of us are on the same screen, right? And I'm on there and I'm leading the meeting, but everybody's speaking up. Each of the teams has a part of that 15-minute meeting. And we're joking around about whether that's about the World Series going on or football games or what somebody did last weekend or whatever. It's that how I can facilitate that and help. And I'm not always the one who's bringing it up, but I'm not stepping on somebody if they bring it up and they're joking around, right? It's building that atmosphere where there is a level of safety. And I think that's also part of our job as a CEO is we need to be able to show up with urgency and priority and ingrain trust. But we also need folks to feel safe, to feel that they can be themselves. I try to do that by being myself. There are days that I'm in my hoodie, right? And I'm just hanging out with everybody else. When we used to have everybody together and we would do Friday afternoon happy hours, I made sure that I was there as well, just hanging out and just not there as the boss, but I'm there as part of the team. I make sure that I take time off, I take PTO, paid time off, and that people know that I'm taking paid time off, and that I'm doing it because I need to rejuvenate. I need to spend time with my daughter. Absolutely, she is the priority in my life, and that I'm communicating that and cheering them on when they do the same. So I think being able to show up how you want others to not only perceive you, but to also show up is part of that. And then it becomes more relatable, and you feel more human, and they relate to you as a person. And I think that just helps. It really, really does.
I love that. And, safety in today's day and age, to me, it holds so much significance, especially in the workplace with everything else going on. And I would also add compassion to that list. Especially we as leaders are usually very laser focused on hitting the bottom line goals. And sometimes we are so tied up that we fail to recognize that the people around us are humans too, and they may not be having their very best day, and their performance may not be at its peak, and that's okay. That it's all right to have those lull days, and accept that and not hide that for our own selves when we show up and have those bad days.
Yes. I think that's a mistake I actually made early in my executive career, is being too laser focused on the business component of that, and production, and not failing, right? And is being in this role now for the years, and what I've gained over the last 7 years is, while I'm not going to make everybody happy, and quite honestly, it's not my job. It's not my job to make people happy. It's my job to lead the company successfully. And that means actually making people unhappy at times. But that doesn't mean that I can't have a real conversation, a real dialogue with them, and talk to them as a person, and explain, and take the time to be present with them in the moment where they might be disappointed in a decision that we've made or a direction that we're going. Okay, I hear you, and I fully support that you feel that way. So let's talk about it. That may or may not change my mind, but it's not, that part isn't personal, but I can relate to you on a personal level.
Right. And, honing in on, setbacks, and, even for each one of us, things sometimes don't go our way, whether it's the boardroom or our living rooms. So when that happens for you, Stacey, is there any particular practice you turn to diffuse the pressure?
I do, and this is something that I can look back and I can see where I lost sight of it, and that's truly my physical well-being, and my physical well-being actually plays then into my mental well-being, which I think it does for most of us. The thing that I do for to take care of myself, I do two things. I spend time by myself. That's how I recharge, is in solitude. And so there's plenty of weekends even that I'll go on vacations by myself. I will, or I'll spend time on the weekends just completely alone, because that's how I decompress. In addition to that, I'll say I run, but it's really more of a jog. It's not about how fast I go, and that there is that element of solitude in that experience for me as well. But that when I see myself getting very stressed, or something doesn't go my way, and I can feel that my response is more emotional than it really should be, I give myself a bit of a timeout, and I say, okay, I need to go to the gym. I need to go out on the trail and go for a run. I need to plan that weekend away so I can have that time to clear my head and approach whatever occurred, whatever that obstacle is or that situation was, that I can think back on it with a clearer head. Those are the two places that I go.
Beautiful, and both are very powerful. I especially love the first one around being able to find some quiet time to spend with yourself. You won't believe, I know so many people in my extended network, and there's very few that actually enjoy that quiet time. Most people are very overwhelmed by that quiet moment, because that's when the monkeys in their head continue to jump around and take away their peace, and they just want to be busy and they want to have their calendar all packed, including weekends, and it's very interesting. But I'm a fangirl of quiet time. And I so believe that the best ideas, the most creative thinking comes to us in those moments when we find the courage to be with our own self, just inner self, not the rest of the world, not the chatter, not the social media, not the noise, but just resting with ourselves.
Oh, yes, I completely agree. I do some of my best problem solving just going again on a vacation by myself and just walking, whether it's on a beach or around an urban area. It doesn't really even matter. The beach is great, by the way, but it really ultimately doesn't matter. But to be able just to go and walk in a place that is not familiar, and so that it's not something where I'm thinking about, okay, I need to go do laundry, or I need to go clean my house, or I need to go grocery shopping, or thinking about all the things that we need to do at home. But it's truly taking me out of my day-to-day element and just being. That is where I truly my head becomes much more clear, and I do my best problem solving. I used to kid with Glenn Jones when I would do that. I would take these vacations and I'd say, I'm pretty sure that given enough time on a beach, I'd solve world peace. But I never got that much time on a beach, so I haven't done that yet. But I do feel like that's where I get my best thinking, my best strategizing when I'm thinking long-term moves for NCTI, for the company. It really comes from that time alone and that time of quiet.
So powerful. All right, great. And then next, I'm just interested, Stacey, in understanding from your own personal reflections and professional reflections, right? Is there any particular setback or experience you had in life in particular that really was a tipping point that kind of transformed and created the Stacey that we're seeing today?
Be able to think of just one is so hard, because I think that's, it's through those challenges and those setbacks that we really grow and we learn. Just very briefly, I'd like to share a personal one, but then I'll expand more on a professional one. I am a fiercely independent person. I have been my whole life. My mom and my dad would tell you that even growing up. About 10 years ago, I was in a situation where I broke both of my arms. And if there is something that will teach you how to rely on other people very fast, it's being suddenly in a situation where you can't do anything yourself. I couldn't drive, I couldn't feed myself, I couldn't get dressed on my own. To be able to, and I'm very blessed that it was for a very finite period of time, but to be able, that just was, for me, it was a paradigm shift that has been powerful the last 10 years, is that it's okay to ask for help, and actually you should. And people want to help, and you give them a gift by letting them help when they want to. And so I think for me personally, that is a time that definitely I transformed and grew substantially. I think from professional wise, acquiring the business 7 years ago it wasn't easy. We went from being a part of a fairly large organization to being a company of mid-20s. And going from the funding of a multi-millionaire to me, which I'm not a multi-millionaire at all, and being able to transform the organization so that we had to make structural changes. There were some layoffs at that time in order for us to truly succeed, and being able to go through that and navigate. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself. The team learned, more than we could probably, ever, share on how we had to change our work processes so that we were actually doing more with less people, less resources. It forced us to be much more creative. And so being able to think about a time that was transformational for me, that definitely professionally was one of those times.
Thank you, Stacey. That's really powerful, especially you sharing those weak moments in your life. I can't imagine how humbling an experience that would have been, especially when you're totally dependent on others personally. I can't believe it. But thank you for coming up and having the courage to share that.
Oh, sure. It's easy to talk about now.
Yes, yes.
Not so much 10 years ago.
Oh, I'm sure.
But it is now. And being able to reflect back and see the people, I mean, just you find out through those times, through those difficult times, and that could have been, and I think just as equally in 2015 when I was there was so much unknown, so much chaos, and I was stressed and, questioning myself and having to really have faith in myself and my judgment and my intuition and the family and friends, the support, and you really find those people who genuinely, they might not be in your life day to day, but they're there when you really need somebody to go, you've got this. You have got this. Don't worry about it. It's tough. It's hard, but you're going to make it through. You've got this.
Yes, yes. And I can relate to that. When I reflect back on my own personal and professional journey, I think my best learnings have come from the weakest moments, right? When there was chaos, when things were completely out of control and I didn't know what to do or who to turn to. That's when something, transpired in me and helped me move along in my own journey. So I couldn't agree more.
100%. Absolutely agree.
Fabulous. So, Stacey, this show is for executives and aspiring executives, right? You have been there, done that. What is the single best advice you would give to them? And I know it's hard because I'm sure there's a slew of things you could share, but if you had to pick just one, what would that be?
Yeah, what I would say, because you're going to get the standard stuff from other books and folks. What has been meaningful to me and my journey and my leadership growth journey that is still going on today is you need to know yourself, and you have to know yourself in order to be true to yourself, and then have confidence and faith in yourself. And so being able, that doesn't mean that you come first. I definitely believe in servant leadership and such, but being able to truly know and be able to respond authentically because of who you are and what you believe, and you're comfortable in your own skin related to your decisions and your thought processes is so vitally important. In order to be able to do that, you need to be in tune with yourself, physically, mentally, emotionally. If you can feel yourself getting hangry, you need to be able to identify, hey, I'm responding in this moment more emotionally than I really should be. You need to be able to have the presence of mind and be present enough in this situation to be able to respond and go, okay, I need to do a check here. I'm not being appropriate in this situation, and it's not because of the situation, it's because I've got this other factor. I'm hungry, or I need to go out for that walk, or I need to remove myself from the situation because I'm not performing at my optimum, and I need to be able to identify that myself. You of course also need to have folks around who will also keep you accountable to that 100% that you will listen to, but you need to be in tune truly with who you are. When I was a very new executive, I received feedback from a variety of individuals within the company that I needed to be more like so-and-so or so-and-so. If you would just be more like so-and-so, the team would be more open with you. If you would just be more like so-and-so, they'd respect you more. And that bothered me, because to me that meant I had to be somebody that wasn't me.
Yeah.
And so I'd also challenge folks that are looking and growing in that space, that when somebody gives you that kind of feedback, dig deeper and find out what it is that they're truly trying to get at. What's the attribute of that individual, and how then can you aspire to work on that particular space in yourself, and still be true to you. Because if you show up and you're not being you, people can see that, and that's where trust fractures, that's where faith fractures, and as leaders we need our team's trust and faith in us is paramount. It's so important.
You described it so well, Stacey. I mean, self-awareness, it's really the cornerstone of anything and everything in life, right? Professional and personal success. And I have seen, both types of leaders in my own experience. Many leaders are not self-aware. They have, they are successful, but their teams dread them because their buttons get pushed so easily. They respond to triggers in a split second, and they sometimes cross the boundary of being assertive to acting in ways where you're not necessarily dipping into the emotional intelligence, engaging the people around them and sensing their feelings. And that is so huge because it separates an exceptional leader from a marginal leader. It really makes all the difference. And the way I look at, everybody, we all have that inner genius in us, in our unique inner genius, the authentic self. And all we have to do is, build that relationship with ourselves, be more self-aware, and essentially take that veil off, that inner genius that we are trying to hide for all these years and decades, and unleash it. And the world will be grateful for it, especially the corporate world with everybody's unique, authentic style.
Oh, yes. Yes. 100% yes.
Thank you, Stacey. It's been absolutely wonderful having you on the show. Thank you so much for your generosity and kindness and words of wisdom. I absolutely enjoyed the conversation. It was very much fun. So thank you so much. There is no better time than now to build resilience, lead mindfully, and with purpose. We all deserve to live our very best life. This show is brought to you by The Resilient Human, a company on a mission to develop authentic leaders that thrive amidst pressure and have the courage to write their own story. A sincere thanks to all my listeners for the precious time and presence. If you genuinely enjoyed the show, I'd love for you to subscribe and leave a review on your favorite listening platform. Be well, and I can't wait to see you at the next episode of The Boardroom Zen.